Welcome to Randall's Retro Rewind, where retro games are reviewed from the gamer and the non-gamer perspective. In this video, we are going to review Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. This is an action platform game developed by Capcom for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1990. It was also ported to Nintendo's PlayChoice 10 arcade system. This is a video game that I remember playing together with my twin brother growing up. We had played through and beat the entire game together, but that was over 20 years ago that this happened. Aside from having faint memories about the game, this was almost a new playthrough for me. There were many aspects of this game that I forgot about that I had to relearn as I was playing through it. But you did not come here to listen to a man's history about his childhood with a video game. So, let's close this chapter of the history book and move on to the review. The game plays pretty seamlessly for an NES game, but that would be expected for a game that was released less than a year before the Super Nintendo was released in the US. The developers had figured out how to work around the limitations of the NES and developed a smooth-running game that controls well. And the physics in the game make it easy to play. You are able to play as one player or two players. The game is easier to play as one player because the dynamic of playing as two players adds its own level of challenge. There is friendly fire where you hit each other with boxes, apples, logs, steel boxes that honestly look like gray marshmallows, and bombs that the manual calls black balls. The bombs will blow up if you hold on to them for too long. I'm assuming that the bomb will blow up if it's thrown at another player, but that was never anything we tried doing because it didn't make sense to throw a bomb at each other. When you get hit by a box, apple, or a steel box, your chipmunk gets dizzy, and you are immobile for a couple of seconds. And something I discovered is you can actually throw a steel box on top of yourself and make yourself dizzy. You also have collision with each other. You can jump on top of each other to reach higher places. I did this once as I was holding an apple and I could not jump as high without it. I jumped on Dale to reach the top of the fence line in the first level. You can also get into each other's way. There was one instance where Corri had died and was floating with a balloon to find a safe place to land. I jumped with Chip and hit Dale as he was floating, which stopped me in place, and I fell to my death. I found that playing two-player was more difficult than playing one-player. You are given some freedom to choose the level that you would like to go to. After you complete the first level, you are given a little map that you can choose which levels you would like to go to. There are times where the map will fork and choose one level over another. I chose to complete every level, though, for the sake of the review. Some levels are far shorter than others and don't have a boss at the end of them. Some of the levels are longer and have bosses at the end, while others are longer but do not have bosses. There is a massive difficulty spike when you reach the last level. There were a couple of times where I would die a time or two, but I was able to complete it after I learned my lessons. But in the last level, I lost count of how many times I died. I know it was over 20 times that I died just attempting to make it through this level. The final boss fight was easier than the level to get to him, but I will get on that later in the video. One unique thing Corri and I discovered was that if you're holding a box and you die, there's a chance that your box will fly up to the top of the screen and disappear. This happened a couple of times, and Corri and I got a big laugh out of it. Speaking of throwing boxes, it was not until I battled the first boss in the game that I discovered you could throw boxes up, which would have made parts of the levels easier for me if I had remembered that I could do this from level to level. The story is simple. A little girl in the neighborhood named Mandy, who you do not actually see at all in the game, has lost her kitten and doesn't know where to begin looking. The rescue rangers decide to help Mandy out, but also want to investigate why the mechanical dogs have been showing up in the neighborhood too. Upon completing the first level, named Zone 0, you discover that it is Fat Cat who has involved the rescue rangers in his devious plan by catnapping Mandy's kitten. The story changes from a standard kitten rescue to putting an end to Fat Cat. Fat Cat has already captured Gadget, the only female rescue ranger, and now Chip and Dale have to save her. After completing levels, Gadget communicates hints for other levels to Chip and Dale through hacking into a wireless phone. The hints are helpful, and she specifically names zones that the hints are for. She will give hints of tougher enemies that will begin appearing in newer levels, tell you about traps, and how to manipulate specific portions of the environment. The levels in the game have all different settings, which are Zone 0, city streets, Zone A, a forest, Zone B, a restaurant, Zone C, a library, Zone D, a toy store, Zone E, a farm, Zone F, a factory, which brought me PTSD from my time playing Mega Man 2. Zone G, Fat Cat's Casino. After the casino, the game takes an interesting turn, where you all of a sudden board a rocket and fly into space, and you land somewhere else on Earth, where you are greeted by the last 3 levels. Zone H, an underground sewer system. Who knew Chip and Dale wanted to be the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle candidates? Zone I, an office. I'm thinking it's a newspaper office with all of the coffee mugs, push pins, and papers at the start of it. Zone J, a pet food processing plant. The resolution of the story is that Chip and Dale make their way to Fat Cat's food processing plant and defeat him. Fat Cat disappears, for now, but the rescue rangers know that Fat Cat will show his face again. But at least for now, Fat Cat's scheme has been put to an end. My only issue with this story is, what happened to Mandy's kitten? You are not told anything about how their first mission ended. Instead, you are thrown into the main mission, and this poor cat-napped kitten story never gets a resolution. Does this little kitten become Fat Cat's new protege, and finally puts an end to the Rescue Rangers' do-goodery? We may never know. There's only 2 playable characters in the game. You can play as Chip or Dale, or both if you do 2-player. Chip wears his cool hat and leather jacket that makes him appear to be the more sophisticated leader of the 2. And there is Dale, who wears his traditional Hawaiian-themed shirt that makes him look like he would rather be on vacation compared to saving people and animals and fighting Fat Cat and his cronies. Both Chip and Dale play the same and do not have an advantage over the other. They are simply a change in outfit, and Dale has his Rudolph red nose, whereas Chip has the typical black chipmunk nose. Has anyone ever questioned why Dale's nose is red? There are non-playable characters, the remaining Rescue Rangers. There is Gadget, Monterey Jack, nicknamed Monty, and Zipper. Gadget is a mouse that also is the tech whiz of the team, and spends most of her time aiding Chip and Dale by providing information and scouting out the area before them. Monterey Jack is shown as sort of a goof in the game, not a Disney reference to Goofy either. He plays a more vital role in the animated series, but for this game, he only opens paths through chain link fences after Chip and or Dale find some cheese, and it looks like he sleepwalks his way by the cheese and through the fence. Lastly, there is Zipper, who is a fly that provides a brief moment of invincibility to the players, and also eliminating any enemies that are on the screen. Regular enemies. There are tons of them. There are the mechanical bulldogs that are in the first level only, and they are the more traditional enemy from the Rescue Rangers animated series. These are the most simple enemies. They only move left to right, and will jump when obstacles get in the way. There is also robotic rats that function similar to the bulldogs, but one difference is that they will hop around seemingly aimlessly until they see Chip or Dale, then they will beeline for you. You have green caterpillars that crawl along tree branches and stop to chew the branch. that they are on. They are low to the ground, which means you can only hit them from below or by throwing a box up or crouching down before throwing your projectile at them. There are flying squirrels that glide through the screen at a diagonal angle. They always seemed to be placed with other enemies that made them a real inconvenience. The next enemy I encountered was a popper mouse, who does not have a tail, which seemed weird to me, and he pops a party popper favor at you. Once he unleashes his weapon, he quickly rolls away. These enemies were very hard for me to hit. Buzz bombs are flies that drop from the top of the screen, and then when they come into line with Chip or Dale, they dart at them. They are easy to avoid if you have just one of them, but they do come frequently enough in certain sections of the game, and they are difficult to avoid as you are jumping over one to be greeted by another. There is also Ditz, which is a weird, armless, green lizard-looking creature that will change its appearance to either Chip or Dale depending on who it sees first. This could be confusing if you were playing two-player, but every time I encountered them, I was on my own, and it was not hard to tell who is who. Racket Roo is one of the most obnoxious enemies. Found in the library, they relentlessly send a barrage of tennis balls at you that they pull out of their pouches and hit at you with their rackets. Then there's Hawk Bomber, whose name tells you what it does. It is a hawk that carries a bomb and flies over you and tries to drop a bomb on you. Introduced in the gift shop level are these spring-loaded boxes that when you get near them, they will bounce up and down until you hit them with a projectile. They are a slightly different color, so it's not hard to tell which box is booby-trapped after you first see one. There is also Jack-in-the-Boxes that bounce up, down, left, right, that you can either jump over or hit with a projectile. The enemy tops cannot be destroyed. If you hit them, they will only spin faster. The easiest way to deal with them is to wait for them to fall off balance and run underneath them. There is also these white rabbits that flick a rug and send a roll towards you. Once you get near the rabbits, they will run off. Introduced in the farm level are little cocoon-looking bugs that hang from a thread and move up and down when you get close to them. They do not move much, so it's not hard to get out of the way or to hit them. In this level, there are also parts of the fence that will fall off, that surprisingly will hurt you if you touch them before they fall. There are also large beetle enemies that hide in the environment. They clue you to where they are by showing you their eyes from the bushes and or cups. And when you get close enough to them, they will jump out and bounce towards you. You are unable to hit them when you see their eyes. You have to wait until they jump out of hiding to be able to hit them. There are also sand lion enemies that are at the bottom of quicksand-like pits. They are difficult to hit and are best to be avoided. Introduced in Zone F are these hawks that wear black muscle shirts that will punch boxes out of the way and remove your ammunition from the level. You get it? Boxes are your ammunition. They also take 2 hits with boxes to defeat, so they are best to be avoided unless you see them from far off and have enough boxes lying around to get the job done. Wart is a green lizard that is dressed like a 1920s American gangster. They are pretty easy in this level because they just walk and jump, but they appear at the last level and are able to throw their hats at you, which really increases the challenge. There are also rhino runners that are dressed in football gear that charge to the left and the right. They also remove boxes from the screen, but do it much faster than the buff hawks. The rhinos are unable to move the steel boxes, so they can get trapped between these. In the underground sewer, you are introduced with the crabs. They move from side to side, but will stop and spit out 3 bubbles that drop like rocks. They can be tricky if you are underneath them, but they are not a real threat if you are to the side of them. There are storks in the office zone that stand in place and will swallow boxes you throw at them and throw them back at you. The trick to beating them that Corri thought of is to throw the boxes at their feet. If you do that, they will not throw throw the box back at you. You are also introduced to the buzzer in this level, which are bees that hover above you and will fly down at you with their stinger poised and ready to make your day worse. The last level introduces these weasels with plunger guns. They are taller than your typical enemies, and they will stop moving before firing their plunger at you. These weasels also take 2 hits to defeat, which makes them an even bigger pain to fight, especially in tight corridors, which they like to place them. There are tons of basic enemies in the game, and the manual only introduces a fraction of the enemies that you have to deal with. Bosses. As mentioned before, not every level has a boss. The zones that have bosses are 0, A, B, D, E, G, I, and J zones. G and J both have Fat Cat as the boss of the level, though Fat Cat looks very different from one to the other. Zone 0 has the Brusher, which is best described as a child's science fair experiment gone wrong. You have to throw the red ball, which kind of looks like Dale's red nose. Is this his nose's older brother? Because you have this ball in every boss fight. Sorry, rabbit trail. Anyway, you have to throw the red ball up and hit the green orb. That reminds me of a light bulb, while dodging the electricity that shoots from the two-fisted hands of the Brusher. After 5 hits, the Brusher is defeated. And no, you do not need to jump up to hit it like I did. I don't even know why I was thinking I had to do that when I was fighting the thing. The next boss is Zone A's Owl. The owl just flies around the top of the screen and drops feathers towards you. You have to dodge the feathers, and at times the owl will fly toward the branch you are on. After hitting the owl with Dale's enlarged nose, you win the battle. Next boss on this list is Zone B's Spaceship. This spaceship flies from side to side on the screen, from one side of the screen to the other, and drops 1 or 2 one-eyed tentacle monsters that you can only avoid. Trust me, I tried to hit them, and these stupid creatures, you can't touch them. Why in the world is there this small spaceship flying around a kitchen? On top of that, this spaceship is only twice the size of a squirrel. Has Chip and Dale enlisted as virus and bacteria cleanup? Or maybe they want to be the next Ghostbusters, only alien version. Anyway, 5 hits with Dale's sniffer, and the spaceship is sent out of this world, hopefully for good. Zone D has the next boss, and it's the robot. The robot enters stage left, even though it's right for us. Stage left and right are based on the actor's perspective on stage. Little drama tidbit for any of you uneducated thespians. The robot approaches close to the player and volleys 10 balls out of its head that spread out and fall. It is your job to hammer the robot with Dale's schnoz in the chest 5 times. If you draw the robot close enough, you can hit it twice with the schnoz because it ricochets off the wall and it can hit the robot a second time. After 5 hits, the robot is turned to scrap metal. Next up is Zone E's boss, the Green Grouper. This dwarvish catfish swims around the water and throws out electricity in pairs toward you. If you do not hit it quickly enough, it is easy for the Green Grouper to overwhelm you. This boss is fairly easy to beat because if you throw Dale's ginormous snorkel aid while it is low to the ground, you can hit it twice with 1 throw. After 5 hits, the Green Grouper is fried fish sticks. Zone G is the first match with Fat Cat. Fat Cat lazily sits on the slot machine and throws coins at you. Just like the Green Grouper, if you do not get a hit in quick enough, Fat Cat will overwhelm you with his coins. Who knew that Fat Cat was so generous with his money? This cat should get a Nobel Peace Prize. You also have to watch out for the 2 sets of spikes on the floor. So, you are dodging the coins and avoiding the environmental hazards. After 5 hits with Dale's inflamed sinus exit, you chase Fat Cat away. The second to last boss is Zone I's Caterpillar. This caterpillar, when hit with Dale's gigantic face orifice, his body falls apart. leaving his head at the top of the level and leaving you to dodge the other 4 parts of his body. After hitting him 5 times, the caterpillar is squashed. It is now time for the final showdown with Fat Cat. He is much larger this go-around, and instead of him showing generosity, he is trying to give Chip and Dale cancer via secondhand smoke. He will flick his cigar in 3 different directions and send 5 pieces of disgusting ash your way. Once you hit him 5 times with Dale's Red Rudolph 5000, you send the Fat Cat packing. The music in the game starts with the familiar Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers theme song from the animated series, only in MIDI form. The music in the levels had music that matched the environment for the most part. There are some zones that used recycled music, like zones A, C, and F used the same song, and zones F, H, and I also used the same song, but for the most part played well along with the environment. Being playful in the toy store, to the swell that was used to start Zone 0, Zone G's being obnoxious like the music, and noises from casino slot machines. The music was a great accompaniment to the overall feel of every level. Zipper's music has a very fast tempo and does help communicate that you are invincible for a time. The boss music has a contender feel to it that prepares you for the fight ahead. The fanfare that follows provides a feeling of accomplishment. The music that plays during the zone clear section gives a sense of urgency and quickly gets you to realize that you have a very short amount of time to get rewards before your time is up. The music that plays during the level selection on the map I would describe as fun and energetic, and the beat to the music almost matches the speed of the flapping wings of the Rescue Rangers Ranger plane. Lastly, the chime that is played when you die has a fun, upbeat, shame on you kind of sound to it. It's like the game is trying to shame you by not shaming you. The NES has a very limited color palette to choose from, but Capcom did a great job with the diversity of colors to give every level a unique appearance, and you could tell where you were adventuring next. The graphics have aged, as any NES game does, but I would argue that the graphics in this game aged like a fine wine, not like the aging of the polygonal graphics of the PlayStation era that look like absolute rubbish to this day. Because of the limited colors, there are times where Chip and or Dale partially disappear in the environment because their color matches the environment in some form or fashion, but that does not happen very often. The details in the environment is nicely done, and they easily tell what is machinery, wood, stone, gift boxes, water, etc. Overall, the graphics for this game are great for being almost 30 years old. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers really hit the nostalgia spot for me playing through this game. It was very frustrating to play the game 2-player because it's too easy to get into each other's way. That complaint also led to some great laughs though, as we hit each other with boxes or apples, or accidentally caused each other to die. But you will notice that the majority of the recording for this video is just Chip. And that is because Corri and I used up all of our continues, and after that happened, I went into, quote, pro gamer mode, unquote. Not really. I am far from a pro gamer, but I managed to play the rest of the game without needing to use a continue. The music for this game is typical Capcom. I love Capcom's music and in retro games. They always found a way to make the music energetic and fun. The graphics are pretty good for a game this old, and the overall mechanics of the game and level design are easy to learn, but can be challenging at times. So, my rating for this game is going to be an 85 out of 100. This game is one that I would recommend others to play. Just maybe not 2-player. No offense, Corri.
Hi, welcome to Corri's Corner, non-gamer's perspective on video games. So this time we played Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. And I have played it before, I think, when I was growing up at my cousin's house. I didn't have video games at my house, so any games I played was always at her house, and I'm pretty sure we played that one. But really, when I think of Chippendale, I think of my Happy Meal toys. Guys, can we just talk about the cool Happy Meal toys from the 80s? I mean, we had the Berenstain Bears, we had the Chippendale ones, of course, and let's see, there's Bambi ones, there was the Oliver and Company figurines. I pulled up a picture of those, and our 17-year-old daughter was like, hey, I played with that. That's how cool they were from the 80s. Like, they lasted. Made me so happy that she remembered that. My favorite, though, was the Muppet Baby stuffed animals. Those came out at Christmas time after we got them every year. Okay, sorry. I had a squirrel moment. Back to the game. I am not very good at this game. I died so much, and eventually, like, to the point I was just out of the game and just had to observe him playing, which is what I prefer anyway, so it was fun. When I was playing and I was jumping up this pole and the rods that would come out of it that I could jump up, and I missed my landing. I had a box in my hands, and I went down and the box went up, and I just busted out laughing. Like, I think that was probably the funniest part of the game for me. But it wasn't the only time boxes decided to go flying up. It happened random times of the game, and I got a pretty good chuckle out of it every time. The last level of the game got tedious to watch just because he kept the difficulty level of it was a lot worse, and he died a lot, and so it got very repetitive. But I enjoyed watching this game just because it brought back so many memories, playing with my cousin, playing with my figurines from McDonald's, and I'm a very nostalgic person. So these games that we're playing are fun for me to have, the ones that bring up memories from my childhood. And this one did a lot of that. So I hope you guys enjoy our video, and we'll see you next time.
Alright, and now it's time to spin the wheel to see what game we're going to review next. Oh, we have the Sega Saturn. I'm excited for this console. Let me move over to the Sega Saturn wheel. And the game we're going to review next is... drum roll, please. Oh, Squeezed In on Daytona, USA. So I hope you guys are looking forward to seeing that video. And until next time, be kind and rewind.